Hello, everybody. Um, feel inspired to do an episode of the show today with all that's happening in the world. I spent a lot of time thinking about macro and how markets will react to things happening in the world, and something really big just happened in the world. We already had a hot war, people dying over. I don't want to say over. I feel like, to a large degree, when it comes to these conflicts, I feel like it's none of my business. I feel like that there is a lot of people sort of armchair quarterbacking and choosing sides in these conflicts without really understanding the full context of the geopolitical situation over the last 100 or so, 1,000 or so years, especially in the Middle East. It feels entirely inappropriate for me to even voice an opinion, I feel like, on these things. I think as somebody who watches events in the world, it is appropriate not to ignore these things because they'll certainly have impacts. So I'm going to read a little bit from my, I have this just running conversation with a couple of my friends, and they started digging into a little bit of the Hamas, Gaza, the Palestinian versus Israeli conflict. And I responded this way. I said, I don't really feel comfortable weighing in on the details of the conflict. Humans killing other humans totally sucks. In learning to read the tea leaves, I've been really certain for a while that something big was scheduled to occur next spring. I guess that sounds sort of sinister or even arrogant, but I really don't mean it that way. As I study the system closely that everything runs on, the unipolar system of military power and money, it's really clear as day that it broke in 2007, 2008. Now it's on borrowed time. It doesn't snap suddenly, it unwinds over time. And I really only have a good handle on the money system. I don't have a clue about the military might of these nations if they decide to take the gloves off. But their balance sheets are right out in the open. All the debt we created to get out of the last scheduled crisis in 2020, and it was a scheduled crisis. If you study macro, if you look deeply at how all this shit works and debt refinancing, we needed a reason to adjust rates to zero in spring of 2020, and we got one. That's what I mean by the last scheduled crisis. Now we have another scheduled crisis next spring because we have, well, I'll get to that. All the debt we created to get out of the last scheduled crisis in 2020 is due to be refinanced next year, starting in April. The debt that needs to roll is $5 trillion. When they took out that debt last time, interest rates were zero. I think we're wise to give fuck all about what the Fed says about higher for longer, because come April, the Fed funds rate better be zero again, or our debt financing in 24 will, for the first time, surpass boomer welfare, Social Security and Medicare/Medicaid. And with everything happening in the world now, if anything, defense spending will need to increase. And when I watch people in Washington, I don't see serious people. I really don't. Like, if you watch, this meltdown that just happened in the House, like, I actually tune all of it out because I find it quite ridiculous. When I listen to, like, what's her name, Maxine Waters talk Bitcom, I mean, these are people that are, I think they have good intentions, but they're not very well studied on a lot of these things that they govern over. And most of their resources are spent on re-election, etc. You know, I don't want to dig into all of the wild dysfunction in Washington, D.C. But I will tell you, as somebody who spends a lot of time trying to understand how all this works, those people don't have a clue how any of this shit actually works. They don't know what money is. They don't understand how far you can push debt. They really don't. They don't know. There is no, like, I think most Americans and a lot of the West thinks there are wise people running all this. This is not true. It's just ridiculous. Very, very ridiculous. Let's see. Where did I leave off? And when I watch people in Washington, I don't see serious people. There is no captain steering the ship. This tells me, just like they did in 2020, rates must crash to zero again. They have to, or everything breaks. This whole system, the global economy, is counting on rates crashing to zero before approximately April of 2024. Now, they can't just do that because if they did it without an excuse, it would just be blatantly getting a credit card to pay off another credit card. So there must be an excuse. The world has to be crumbling. Now, I feel like we're basically in a chicken match between everybody who's experiencing pain over rates suddenly being violently pushed up to 5% plus ish, 5% ish, 4.5% ish. This house of cards that our financial system runs on, and like it can't tolerate that for much longer. So it's just a question of what breaks first, and for a lot of actually fairly good reasons, it has to be pushed to where something breaks. And that's what we're experiencing. Like the Arab Spring, this thing that just happened in Israel between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Side note, I don't really know any Palestinians, but I went to Israel twice for work. I have a bunch of really like warm memories. Like I found it to be a beautiful place, which is very close to Gaza. I love the weather. I loved the ocean. The Mediterranean is beautiful, and the rich history of that land is spectacular. And I found all of the people in Tel Aviv that hosted me in many ways through my work. I used to work for Intel that had an office there. Amihai, Arik, Yossi, and Yossi 2. To be really fun, warm-spirited people with good hearts. I messaged one of them. The day this all happened on Saturday, I hope you're okay. Are you good? And he got to a shelter. He was in a shelter with his family when I messaged him, and I thought, I'm so happy my good friend is not hurt, and his family and his children are accounted for. And I feel like the conflict that's happening there is none of my damn business. I just really like some of the people that I met, and I want them to be okay. I've seen there's a lot of video right now of the conflict, and I think a lot of people are weighing in largely kind of I think as people sort of blindly take sides in a conflict they don't really understand, that they don't have any skin in the game, that might be useful to each side of a conflict. I'm in the camp that I just want it to end, and senseless deaths and murder. Actually, I think when people murder, I think it takes a part of their soul, and I spent a lot of time studying sort of theism and looking really deeply at all of our rich history of theism, Christianity, Muslim faith, Torah, Kabbalah. Kabbalah, I see a lot of rich wisdom that I have a lot of respect for. Muslim faith, I have a lot of deep respect for. I've seen, as I was going through divorce, one of my really good friends was raised Muslim, and I patterned a lot of my behaviors as I went through it after my good friend. And I met with him afterwards, and I said, where did that come from? How are you just so classy? How did you take care of your family so well? Where did that come from? Because I copied it, and I thought it was beautiful. And he said, well, you'll laugh because you will judge me. It came from, I think he's largely atheist these days, or very detached from his faith, but he was raised a very staunch Muslim, very integrated into the church or the mosque. I want to pay proper respect, and I don't always use the right terminology. That really, I was not put off by that. It was really telling that there was this good friend of mine that I patterned behaviors off of, that I learned from him, and he said they came from how he was raised in the Muslim faith. And that's as somebody who had no exposure to that growing up. So I have a lot of respect for it. And as I spend a lot of time sort of reconciling all of Buddhism, Taoism, Hermeticism, all of these faiths, and I'm really trying to collapse them and figure out where they all rhyme and tell the same story. And I find that they largely do, actually. It's just they're a unique flavor of it. I think it's really I think it's human nature that we have these conflicts where we lose track of what the whole thing's about, and we bicker. Bicker feels judgmental. Not bicker, but we disagree over two approaches to solving the same riddle. That's what I find most of our most revered texts and teachings that people have fought and died over for thousands of years. They all look like manuals for answering the hardest questions of life in a way that is just sort of a unique flavor. But they're all described to the sage, to the person who really is looking for what they're trying to describe. They're all kind of telling a story of love, of self and outside self. And I think that's beautiful. And so I don't know if that's appropriate to say here. It's just what comes to mind as I see this horrible conflict. I see a lot of people on Twitter making very sort of disparaging and dismissive comments about about other people's faith, and it feels wrong to me. It feels very disrespectful, and I feel moved to say that. And, you know, I can't insulate myself entirely from this sort of thing, and I don't want to. I think you're wise to have your eyes open, and there's so much to teach in situations like this. I would say I saw a video. I saw a lot of horrible videos, and I don't really seek them out, but they came up. And there was one where there's somebody from Hamas, kind of, it's like the most popular video that's getting the most airplay on all of the different social media platforms, of some guy really roughly, you know, he's ushering a woman into a Jeep, as he says, religious proclamations. And this woman's bleeding, and she's just and you can tell there's a look of terror in her face. And I see that, and I see a woman that is going through something horrible. And I see a young man who's probably grown up, and, you know, you don't know the whole story. You don't know whether his father was killed, or his brother was killed, or his mom was killed in a retaliation. A lot of these things are like, they fall in that category. And you don't know the whole story. But then, and so people are quick to judge that person and their whole side of a conflict that, again, they have no business really sticking their nose in, I think. But I have deep compassion for and sadness for the terror I saw in that woman's eyes. It was horrible. And then I saw a woman with her baby, and she was holding her baby. It was a Jewish woman with her infant child, and she's hugging her baby, and somebody is sort of roughly grabbing her and moving her around, and another man from on the Palestinian side is like, "No, you are showing a total lack of humanity. We're supposed to be better than this." That is beautiful. I would say to anybody on that side of the conflict, that man showing that compassion for that old woman everyone should be emulating that. Everybody should embrace that. If you want the support of the world, you must show compassion. You must treat that woman and her infant child with respect and care. You have you have a set of objectives that you would like to see fulfilled. When I look at it just logically, like a chess player, you will get so much more support from the rest of the world if you show that compassion. And I would argue that there is no lens through which, after spending a lot of time understanding and reconciling all of these faiths against each other, there is no God that would look approvingly at a lack of compassion. This whole thing runs off compassion. It really does. It runs on love. It's here. I mean, this is all here to teach us that. And that man from Hamas telling some young man, no, you treat this woman with care. She has a child. Look out for her. It was beautiful. It moved me. It still does. I hope there's more of that. I think you guys would be so much more successful in all of your objectives if you embodied that compassion. And to, I don't know, I think all of the people that are being held hostage for your agenda, I'm not going to weigh in that on any of that. It's none of my business. I will just say, show them compassion as because one human to another. That's what this is all for. It's about learning compassion and exemplifying it. There is no place where you're not showing compassion for another human and you get to somehow get promoted. There's no evolution past what you're experiencing. It's either over or you go back and do it again because you did not learn compassion. I was very moved by that, man. I hope there's more of them. I'm really glad for all my friends that are safe, that I met while I was there. And that's probably all I should say. Thank you so much. If you tuned into this and you're pro-compassion, good on you. Spread the word. Compassion's cool. I love humans. I would like us to just all get along. I understand why sometimes we don't. And I don't wish to say anything more for risk of offending folks that would think I'm sticking my nose in where it doesn't belong. Thank you so much.